I've made over £3 million with different businesses since I dropped out of school 7 years ago, and that sentence sounds far more impressive than it actually is, because throughout that process it involved unnecessary amounts of stress. Long days, too many decisions, and too many steps that required far too much time of my attention. I've built numerous different businesses, ones that grew incredibly quickly and burnt me out, and others that felt more calm, sustainable, and predictable, even when they were growing month on month. The difference between those businesses isn't effort. I still work 10, 12 hours every single day because that's just the way that I work and the way that I like to work. That's how my businesses were designed, and it doesn't come down to effort. By the end of this video, you'll understand the core concepts that I've used in order to scale my revenue and build businesses that can operate without me, and it's the same across every type of business and every type of industry. So let me share my screen and I'll show you exactly how. Now, every business's marketing can be broken down into 3 main concepts. A lot of the time, businesses don't make money because they don't realize what's needed at every one of these stages. A lot of the time, businesses jump straight down into the middle of funnel or the bottom of funnel, and they completely forget about their top of funnel. What it then means is their funnel is essentially getting smaller and smaller as the leads go through. If we can have a targeted funnel full of the right types of qualified leads, but have it as wide as possible, then we have more people trickling down to the lower stages. So when we look at building a marketing, essentially approach in order to grow our business, we want to break this down into one of these 3 sections. Is it a top of funnel campaign with the goal of building awareness? What's the tangible KPI that we want from a top of funnel campaign? That's more followers on whatever platform it is that is our most popular social media platform that we're marketing on. We're not looking to directly make sales there, but then off the back of it, we will probably have DM conversations that will then steer around to the point of eventually making a sale. The next section that we look at is our middle of funnel. The goal here is for us to essentially build our assets, build our email list, build a list of contacts that we can remarket to with emails, or we can just consistently remarket to with our bottom of funnel that we'll talk about later. In our middle of funnel, the tangible KPI that we want to achieve is the number of opt-ins, essentially leads submitting their details, generally in return for something of value, a lead magnet. So we might put up a free resource that a lead would submit their details in return for them getting that resource. We have to give them a reason for that trade-off in terms of them giving us their contact details for a piece of value. A lot of the time, businesses make the mistake of quickly rushing that piece of value just for the sake of getting a lead magnet up. But what it means is it's not really valuable for that lead. They then really don't have any buy-in to you because they're not taking any value from it. The real merit comes from making that free lead magnet so valuable that it could be a part of your paid program. The next section that we look at is our bottom of funnel. We are essentially here looking directly to get people to inquire with an application form, with a call booking, or directly make a sale. Here is where we've built up enough of an audience that we can retarget because we've built enough trust with them into our different offers. You will find that it's a lot easier to make sales with your bottom of funnel and to sell it at higher price points and to have a lower acquisition cost if you have a pool of people who are warm enough for you to retarget. They already have trust in you, they're willing to pick out their card and essentially pay you money, as opposed to being a completely cold prospect that has zero buy-in to you at that time. Now, when we look at each section, we have the KPIs that I mentioned with our top of funnel, getting followers, our middle of funnel, getting opt-ins, and our bottom of funnel, getting inquiries or sales. What we want to have is we want to have a KPI for each section so we know the cost and our target cost for that outcome. What it then means is, from a business perspective, we have far more predictability because it's not just a case of us saying we need sales, let's launch some ads. It's a case of us saying we need sales, let's launch our bottom of funnel campaign, and we know that it costs us this amount of money to get a call in, and we then maybe have a 60% show rate and a 50% close rate, so we can then reverse engineer the data. So when we look at these from a KPI perspective, our top of funnel, the goal would be £1 or less per follower. Our middle of funnel, the goal would be £2 or less per opt-in. And then the bottom of funnel, this is a little bit more specific to you and your industry, and also based off your price points. If we're selling a very high ticket offer, we can afford to and be happy to spend larger amounts of money to get calls booked in because the upside is higher. However, generally we'd be looking at £30 to £100 or a little bit over that per call booked in. And if we could then have a 60% show rate or more from that, and then a 50% close rate from the calls that show, that would put us in a really good position. And then what we know is, from a marketing perspective, if we're say aligning at £100 a call, we know that every £100 that we put in, we get one call booked. But we know that it's roughly a 60% show rate. So we then know that we need to book a handful of calls to then get a handful of shows. And then we know that 50% of those calls that show will then close. So it means that we know how much money we need to put in order to essentially fill a calendar of sales appointments. Now, when it comes to top of funnel, our goal is to not necessarily directly monetize this straight away, but it's to build awareness. But what we can do is we can, on the back end, monetize this by, when we have new followers coming through, reaching out to new followers, starting conversations with them. And generally what we'll find is a this or a that style question works best. When we get a new follower, asking them, are you looking to do this or this? So it's easy for them to reply. We have to realize that at this point, they're a cold lead, they have no buy-in to us. So we want to reduce the amount of friction that it takes in order for them to reply to us and start an actual conversation. Now, there's numerous research showing that cold prospects need anywhere from 8 to 50 touch points with us in order to make a sale. So we have to realize that we will probably have to send some follow-up messages here, but what we can do is we can then go a step further and turn these new followers into inbound leads instead of us having to outbound to them. We have to realize that social media platforms have a limit to the number of outbound messages that we can send. So if we can cause leads to inbound to us instead, that's going to make our life a hell of a lot easier. We can do that two ways. We can use a software called ManyChat, or what we do is we use our own platform, Systemized to Scale, our own all-in-one CRM software to essentially replace ManyChat and loads of different other softwares, and we run it inside here. What we then do inside automations is we have a part of the platform that we call STS Chat, Systemized to Scale Chat, and the goal of this is to essentially automate that process. So what we then will see here is what we do is we then have triggers along the top. We'll have a trigger for when people comment or DM us a keyword. When someone comments or DMs a keyword on a post, it will reply to their comment automatically. When it replies to their comment, we'll have a variation of 5 to 10 randomized comments. So then what it means is when we get a lot of engagement on a post, it's not all going to look like a robot. It's going to have different comments on each one, so it doesn't look like it's robotic. What that then means is our content can have call to actions to get people to comment a keyword. For example, if we do a piece of content around a certain topic, we can have a free additional lead magnet, a resource that matches that piece of content but goes into even more value. And in that piece of content, we can then have the call to action to get people to comment a keyword in order to get the resource. When they do that, it triggers this automation. If they comment as opposed to DM, it replies to their comment. It tracks them on our pipeline so we know where they've come from. It tags them so we know where they've come from. And then you'll see here, it will then go back to them with a message. That message is then asking them for their email. When they then essentially come back to us, the system checks if they have an email. If they do, it sends them the resource in the DMs, the actual link. If they don't reply to us, the system follows up within an hour to then drop a chaser. So when they reply, we check if they have their email. If we do, we then share the resource. So then that way, what we've done is we've not only taken a lead that's just followed us, that has no intent with us yet, they've consumed our content, they've engaged with our content, they're now in our DMs as an inbound lead, plus they're on our email list so we can continue nurturing them after that. What that then means is it bypasses social media's limitation with the number of outbound messages that we can send. So just with that simple system, we can then create that for numerous different lead magnets. So essentially kill two birds with one stone, where we get new followers, but we get them in the DMs and we have intent because we know what their struggles are. Because if they're opting into lead magnets around a certain topic, we know that they're probably struggling with that. They're then also on our email list, which then leads us into the middle of funnel section with how we essentially monetize that. Now, in the middle of funnel, our goal here is to build up an email list that allows us to not just be reliant on social media. So social media can feed our middle of funnel with the chat sequences. We can run ads also direct to a middle of funnel to feed it even more. But what it then allows us to do is run email campaigns that then ultimately allow us to convert more prospects over email. And I know you're probably going to say, well, my clients aren't on email, they don't engage with email. Yes, they do. Email is an incredible platform. It always has and it always will be. You're probably just doing it wrong if you're not making money from it. So here's what you're going to do instead. You're going to email Monday through to Saturday. On Monday, you're going to send an email to your full email list. That full email list, you are going to link a longer form piece of content that you're going to film and post on YouTube. On Tuesday, you're only going to send to people who have opened your emails in the last 30 days. On Tuesday, you're going to have a story-based telling email about something that you struggled with in the past and how you fixed it. On Wednesday, you're still going to send to your 30-day opens, but you're going to talk about a client, their results, and link your essentially sale process or a calendar for them to apply and book in a call. Thursday, you're going to do exactly like you did on Tuesday, but obviously around a different topic, and still send to your 30-day opens. On Friday, what you're going to do is still to the leads that have opened emails in the last 30 days, you're going to talk about a problem, talk about how you have a free solution to it, and how you have a free resource. And if they DM you this certain word on Instagram, they can get that resource for free. That then links back into all of these chat sequences that we've mentioned. So then on Monday, we're getting people into longer form content so they build more know, like, and trust with us. Tuesday through to Thursday, we're giving people the option to book in a call and build more trust with us. And then Friday, we're then having a spike in terms of the number of inbound leads we have, heading over to our Instagram and then messaging us direct there. Then Saturday, what we want to do is we only want to send an email to people who have opened the emails in the last 7 days. And on Saturday, what we want to do is we want to ultimately recap the week. What's gone well this week, what hasn't gone well this week, and essentially make us look like a human. A lot of the time when people are going to buy into us, I think they think that we're not human, we're this crazy, consistent figure, which of course, to a degree we are, but at the same time, we're also human as well. For example, if we look at it from a fitness coaching perspective, I think a lot of people look at personal trainers thinking they're incredibly consistent. It's not like a human to be that consistent, when in reality, everyone always has days where maybe they don't feel like training, maybe days where they don't feel like sticking to their nutrition, maybe days where they feel less motivated. And the goal of that Saturday email is to show that so people can resonate with you and build more trust in you because they can see that you're very similar to them and go through the same struggles that they do. Now we have our top of funnel running, bringing us more awareness. We have our middle of funnel running, building our assets and our email list so we can make sales away from social media. What we now need to do is we now need to build out our bottom of funnel. And when we look at our bottom of funnel, here is where we're looking at retargeting all of this essentially data list into either a funnel to purchase or a funnel to book a call. A lot of the time, you will probably find that you're already making sales with your top and middle of funnel, so you can potentially just go more aggressive on these. Because once you figure out that it's costing us £1 or less to get a follower, it's costing us £2 or less to get an opt-in, and then out of every opt-in, we book this many calls and make this many sales, what it then means is potentially you don't need a bottom of funnel because you just put more volume into that. And when you have predictability with your numbers, it then means that you can just scale your volume aggressively. And of course, your margins might reduce a little bit in terms of you might be getting a £50 call booking, but that cost might go up slightly when you spend more. But when you're spending more, you've got more volume, which then means that you can make more. For example, if you put £1 into ads and you get £10 out, that's great. But if you put 10 grand into ads and you get 50 grand out, that's even better. Even though your multiple is less, it's less of a bigger, essentially, asset list of data. Now, when we look at bottom of funnel, we can be very direct with our offer and what we're trying to target because we are retargeting essentially our middle of funnel and our top of funnel. We can then do this with ads. So then what it means is anyone that's come onto our Instagram page or Facebook page, we can then retarget them, as well as the people who have opted into lead magnets into our bottom of funnel. What that then means is we're essentially scooping up all of the warm prospects, pushing them straight through into a funnel, and on that funnel, they can make a sale, apply, or even book a call with us. And when we're inside Facebook Ads Manager, if we go to audiences on the left, we can build out these specific audiences. So we can create a custom audience, and what we can then choose is a custom audience based off people from our Instagram account or based off people from our Facebook page. What this then allows us to do is we can then essentially choose a list of people who have maybe engaged with our page, Or if we've got enough volume of new followers coming through, a list of people who have started following us. We can then retarget all of these people into our bottom of funnel to then get them to take an action such as purchasing, applying, or booking in a call. But what we can then also do is we can retarget essentially website traffic or Facebook lead form opt-ins. So we can then retarget a list of everyone that's either landed on our opt-in thank you page or submitted a Facebook lead form. So essentially all of the people who have opted in, and we can then serve them a very direct ad to the point with one goal of getting them to click through, make a sale, apply, or book a call. Now, throughout all of these stages, the goal is as soon as you find the cost to do each action, that you do more of it and you push volume through it. It's impossible to do that if you are trying to do it all manually. So what we do is we use our all-in-one sales and marketing platform called Systemize to Scale, a CRM software that replaces loads of different platforms in your business. But what we can also do is go one step further and go to customer list and create a list of all of the customers that we've had. So we can go into Stripe, export the customer list from Stripe, import it into here, and Facebook will essentially match up those clients with people on Instagram and Facebook. We can then go one step further and create what's called a lookalike audience from this customer list. So Facebook are finding the types of people that have the same behavior, same interests, same engagement as our customers do on Instagram, but they're not our customers. And it can be a list of 500 to 1 million plus people, and we can target them with our top of funnel and or our middle of funnel. So then they're funneling through into being followers or into our email list for us then to be able to retarget them as a bottom of funnel. A lot of the time with Facebook, the way that you'll find that you'll get better quality leads and cheaper leads is being very direct with what you say, what you do, and what people hear. The more direct that you are, the more direct to a certain type of person that you speak, the better the outcome will be from ads, because Facebook will literally pluck those people out from Ads Manager. If you're generic, you will get generic leads. If you're direct, you will get specific leads that are able to then invest into working with you. A lot has changed with Facebook, and generally on an audience level, if we're broader with our audiences, but more specific with our ads, we'll then get even better quality leads off the back of it, and we'll be able to scale a campaign more because the audience isn't as small and limited. Now, the goal with all of this is it comes down to volume and us putting a huge amount of volume through this once we know the cost for each stage. When we know the cost for each stage, we drive volume into it and we can then be predictable with it, but it's impossible to do that at scale if you're doing that manually yourself, which is why we use softwares such as Systemize to Scale, our all-in-one sales and marketing platform that replaces tons of different software subscriptions in your business, all in one place, and Zapier, which essentially is like having a staff member that works full-time, 365 days a year, except they're not needing a salary and they're just literally working 24/7 for you. If you're just starting out in business or you're building your 10th business, all of these phases stay the same and you need to understand them if you want to build a wildly profitable business. Building a profitable business is one thing, but building a sustainable business that is predictable and grows month on month is another. And if you follow these sections, it will allow you to do that. I hope you found this valuable, and I'll catch you in the next one.